I'm hiding my father's infidelity from my mother and dying of guilt. Let me start off by saying, my parents are a picture-perfect couple. They are high school sweethearts, but even after 30 years of marriage their spark never died. They still go on dates very often, leave love notes to one another around the house, and are very thoughtful towards one another. My dad especially is a great father and husband. When I was a kid, my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer. Thankfully it was caught early, but she still had to go through chemo and it took a massive toll on her body and spirit. She was mostly bedridden. It absolutely shattered me seeing her suffer that much. It was a tough time for us, but I can't put into words how much of a trooper Dad was. This man took over everything. Not only was he the sole provider, but he was on top of all household chores. We had healthy home-cooked meals, the house was always spotless, and he made sure me and my siblings never missed a school day or any extracurricular activities and maintained good grades. He was there for my mom for almost every chemotherapy session and never once showed any signs of fatigue or frustration. He was always cheerful and kept telling us we'll get through this and we had nothing to worry about. It gave me a lot of hope seeing him stay strong throughout the whole ordeal and helped me stay focused on my studies and not spiral into depression. Eventually, my mom recovered and everything went back to normal. But to tell you I thought the world of my father would be an understatement. Superman had nothing on my dad. I looked up to him and aspired to be half the person he was. Imagine my horror when I walked into our house one day to find him in bed with another woman. I say woman, but she looks no older than 20 years old, basically my age. My mother was in our hometown for a distant relative's wedding and I was supposed to be at college, but I wanted to drop by for a quick visit. I don't think I've ever yelled at anyone the way I did that day. I kicked her out and chastised him for hours after she left. This pathetic excuse of a human being tried to bribe me to not tell Mom. I can't even begin to explain how pathetic he was, begging me to not tell Mom, promising me he'll buy me a new car if I keep quiet. I wanted to throw up. It was a far cry from the father I knew, loved and respected. It's been 2 weeks since this incident. I went back to my dorm and my father has been spamming me with calls and messages ever since. He would range from begging me not to destroy our family to threats of cutting me off the will if I tell Mom. I've been wanting to tell her, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The aftermath of this will be brutal. My picture-perfect family will be ruined forever. I pondered telling my siblings instead, but I couldn't do that either. It would ruin their image of Dad forever. I feel like I lost my dad forever. I don't recognize this man, but this is not the dad I knew and loved. I'm an adult. I understand relationships are complicated and my parents' relationship is ultimately none of my business. Cheating is one thing, but bribing your kid? Threatening to disown them if they tell anyone? WTF is this shit? How can I ever look him in the eyes again? I don't know if I'll ever forgive him, and I can only hope my mother finds it in her to forgive me for keeping it from her this long. I needed to tell someone desperately, but I didn't know who. Thanks for reading this anyways. Update. First off, I want to thank everyone that DM'd me and were supportive during this hard time. Thank you to everyone in the comments for the necessary dose of reality. I needed that push to finally tell my mother. I decided to do what a lot of you advised and rip the band-aid. I decided against giving my father a heads up. I just don't see the point of that. Friday, when my father was still at work, I went back home and told my mother everything. It was very unceremonious. I just told her what happened chronologically, showed her his texts and voicemails. We cried together and talked a lot. Turns out this isn't the first time he cheated. My mother told me a lot of stories I didn't know about their marriage and our childhood. The first time my father cheated on her was when she was pregnant with my brother. His mistress back then asked him to divorce my mother and leave with her, and he was planning to, but when they found out the gender of the baby, male, he decided he wanted to stay and make things work. My mother didn't know about any of this until her cancer diagnosis. That's when he opened up about it and begged her to forgive him because he's very religious, and if she dies before forgiving him he'll go to hell or some bullshit. My mother decided to forgive him because she was in no position to deal with cancer and the courts and us. It was too much for her. So she made herself believe he turned a new leaf and used his devotion for the family during this rough time as proof to further her delusions. That's not even the tip of the iceberg of why my father is a piece of shit though. Every time my mother gave birth she would be banished to the nursery with the newborn because he had work in the morning and can't be bothered to be woken up by a crying baby, nor my mother moving to tend to that crying baby. He would even lock their bedroom door at night, so even if she needed something from her own bedroom she couldn't get it. Once when my toddler sister was sick, she was with my mom in the living room and she started throwing up. My mom called for my dad to get her a bucket from the bathroom and he threw it forcefully at her head and told her to stop bothering him. He would often give my mother backhanded compliments and caused her to develop an eating disorder like, "You look great, sweetie. Imagine how you'd look if you lost 10 pounds. Or, I love you a lot and I'd love you even more if you lost weight." Really disgusting stuff. He also used anything my mother told him about her family or trauma against her. According to my mother, for every terrible thing he did an amazing thing that made her forgive him, and for the longest time she truly believed he's a good man with some flaws, but he's working hard every day to be a better husband and father, and for that alone she loved him and overlooked all his shortcomings. This update doesn't have the happy ending I'm sure a lot of you are expecting. My mother isn't going to divorce him. When my dad came home, the three of us had a discussion about it. My father apologized to us both, and he and mom will go to couples counseling. This was an emotional roller coaster for me, but now I just feel very numb. My parents asked me not to tell my siblings, so I have nobody to share this with. On the family GC, my siblings are writing about how excited they are to be coming home in August, and my parents are replying enthusiastically as if their marriage isn't hanging by a thread. I'm still at my parents' place. I'll be going back to the dorm Sunday night. I feel dead inside. Everything I thought I knew about my family is a lie, and it may sound childish, but I'm finding it extremely hard to cope. Thanks for reading this to the end.